Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you tonight. A sharp sell-off on Dalal Street. The Sensex loses over 1,000 points. The Nifty drops below 24,900. All sectoral indices end in the red for the week. US jobs growth in August is lower than expected, strengthening the case for a rate cut this month. The president of the New York Federal Reserve says it is time now to cut rates. Nobel laureate economist Joseph Stiglitz says he's expecting a big rate cut. The Reserve Bank of India is on a gold buying spree, adds 5 tons of gold to its reserves in July. 43 tons have been added just this year, taking the total reserves to 846 tons. New project financing rules prescribing a 5% provisioning worries bankers and the government. Sources say higher provisioning can impact credit flow and calls for a deferred and staggered rollout of the expected credit loss norms. That's an exclusive. Cash-strapped SpiceJet shares a turnaround strategy with stock exchanges after its upcoming 3,200 crore rupee fundraising plan. Promises to use the proceeds to settle liabilities, renegotiate contracts and optimize human resources. The government is firming up the third tranche of its flagship EV scheme. Sources say it is considering ensuring certificates as proof of subsidy for EV buyers as it focuses on promoting electric mobility, subs for electric ambulances, electric police vehicles and additional incentives for buyers scrapping old vehicles likely. Parliament's Public Accounts Committee has decided to call senior officials at regulatory bodies, including SEBI, for a performance review, says the head of the panel and Congress MP K.C. Venugopal. The Congress party alleges that the SEBI chief earned rental income from a company linked to the Walcard Group, which is a listed entity regulated by SEBI. Wrestlers Vinesh Phogat and Bajrang Punia joined the Congress ahead of the Haryana elections. The two athletes were at the forefront of the protests against former BJP MP and Wrestling Federation chief Brij Bhushan Singh for alleged sexual assault last year. Reports suggest that they're likely to contest the assembly elections. India's dream run at the Paralympics continues. Praveen Kumar wins a gold medal in high jump. This is India's 6th gold and the 26th medal overall. Well, as always, let's start with the market action. It was a sharp sell-off that we saw on Friday, which took the Nifty below the 24,900 mark. The Sensex was down about 1,000 points today, and the Nifty lost nearly 300 points. Even the mid-caps not spared, down by about 1.5%. The Nifty Bank lost almost 900 points. So across the board, the market's closing in the red. Sharp cuts coming in across the board today. As far as the market cap is concerned, market cap worth 6 lakh crore rupees was wiped out today. But that's the story here. Let's talk about the global markets. The US jobs data is going to be the big headline to track. One of the important cues that the market was looking towards. The American economy has created 1.42 lakh additional non-farm jobs in the last month. Now, that is slightly lower than estimates, and this strengthens the case for a Federal Reserve rate cut later this month. The New York Fed President John Williams, also a member of the Fed's rate-setting committee, has said that it was appropriate time to lower rates. In fact, economist and Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz says the Federal Reserve raised rates too far and too fast. He believes the Fed should deliver a big rate cut in September.
I believe that they have contributed to the problem of inflation. Now, even though their models don't work this way, and they're not looking at things, I think, as deeply as they should, their models tell them, look at the weaknesses in the economy, and therefore we should be lowering interest rates. So I would vote for a bigger rate cut because I think they went too far, and it would actually help on the issue of inflation and on jobs.
Well, that's Joseph Stiglitz there. Expectations of a rate cut building now. Back home, the deadline for foreign portfolio investors to disclose beneficial ownership in companies where the shareholding is above 50% ends today. Surabhi is standing by with more on the new FPI ownership norms and the likely impact. Surabhi.
Well, the market fall today has coincided with a very important deadline that is finally upon us with respect to granular disclosure of actual beneficiaries when it comes to certain FPI structures. Now, I'll quickly take you back in time to, jog the memory once again. This all goes back to the August 23 circular that came out saying that certain category of FIIs which were breaching a particular threshold, with the threshold being 50% or more equity in a single Indian corporate group or holding more than 25,000 crores of AUM in Indian equities. If you were breaching these thresholds, then you had two options. Either you disclose the details of the last beneficial owner, or you start selling down your holdings so that you are no longer in breach of these thresholds. The original timeline was about 90 days because the circular came into effect on the 1st of November 2023. So FPIs were given 90 days to comply. Even if they didn't comply in 90 days, they were given another grace window of about 30 days. Those who did not disclose or sell down in that window were told that they have to forfeit their India licenses and then they have to shut shop, wind down, sell down their positions and exit in 180 days. And that 180-day deadline is finally drawing to an end. September 9, Monday, is when that deadline draws to a close. So what's new? All this is known. Then why the hullabaloo? That's because on the sidelines, there was a exemption criteria that was given. Certain set of FPIs who would be exempt from the purview of this August 23 circular. Now, a lot of FPIs felt that they'll get the exemption, but in between, SEBI tweaked the exemption criteria itself. And the entire exemption criteria, the new set of rules, has still not been notified. And therefore, the confusion, the back and forth, FPIs have been writing into SEBI. Some have even approached the Securities and Appellate Tribunal demanding that exemption or seeking that exemption. So while the exemption issue hangs in limbo, the timer was still ticking and the deadline is upon us, and therefore the confusion. The market participants we spoke to said that this should not be impacting too many large FIIs because most have made modifications to their structures. But it still remains an unresolved issue, and we need to see what is the final positioning that FPIs as well as the market regulator takes on the matter.
All right, Surbhi, many thanks for joining us. Now, the Reserve Bank of India is in a gold buying spree. The central bank added 5 tons of gold to its reserves in July. 43 tons have been added just this year, taking the total reserves to 846 tons. Manisha joins us now to explain the reason behind the RBI's gold rush. Manisha.
Well, yes, India's RBI has added 5 tons to its gold reserves for the month of July. RBI actually has been adding gold to its reserves every single month in 2024, bringing it to 43 tons in this year and a total holding of at around 846 tons as of now. And it's not just India which has been buying gold. You have seen that trend go across with various other global central banks as well, which saw buying in the month of July at around 37 tons, which is 200% higher on a month-on-month basis. And in the month of Jan, the buying was at 45 tons. If you look at the first half of 2024, well, it has been a record buying in this year to the tune of 483 tons. The global central banks have been buying record quantities of gold in the last couple of years as well. In 2023, they bought gold worth nearly 1,082 tons. That was in 2022, which was also a record. 2023, the global central banks bought 1,037 tons of gold. So clearly, this does tell you that they are actively accumulating gold. This is also to ensure that there is an increase of gold in reserves. And second, the whole theme about de-dollarization is something that the markets now seem to be looking at into in this way. If you look at the Asian central banks, they seem to be adding more. So you have various banks within India, and then there is Turkey, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Russia has been adding a lot of gold as well. China has been buying for last 18 months constantly. So there's a lot of gold buying happening via the central banks, and is one of the major reasons that you have seen the gold prices on where they are.
All right, Manisha, many thanks. And here's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive tonight. The government and bankers have called for a deferred and staggered rollout of the RBI's project financing norms, which essentially mandates that lenders set aside a provision of 5% of the outstanding loan amount. Sources tell us that the new provisioning norms could impact the credit flow, and that's the concern. Sapna joins us now with more on what the government has suggested and proposed instead. Sapna.
Well, sources say that certain suggestions indeed have been made to the banking regulator on some of the key aspects of the draft project finance rules. First, the 5% provisioning suggested by RBI will be too steep, and this is an opinion across the board. This will not only push up financing costs for borrowers, but it will also possibly impact their cash flows. Plus, it will also affect credit flow to infra projects, and that could be a key concern for the government. Second, the regulator has not made any sectoral differentiation for higher provisioning by banks. All banks will need to adhere to the 5% provisioning norm, irrespective of the fact that certain sectors could have a lower risk of default, and hence provisioning should be done accordingly. Third, there could also be a need to revisit how a credit event or potentially a default has been dealt with in the draft circular. For instance, the RBI draft says that fall in the net present value of the project leading to a possible stress in the loan is a credit event. And for this, an independent re-evaluation will need to be done by banks every year. Now, borrowers fear that this norm could actually trigger restructuring, which will have its own set of complications. Similarly, any future provision requirements for banks under the expected credit loss framework will also need ample clarity. Sources now indicate that possibly suggestions have already been made to the banking regulator that banks will need at least 3 years to align to the expected credit loss rules, plus they'll also need an additional 3 years to implement the same. Now, on both these aspects, these suggestions have been made to the banking regulator. We'll have to wait and watch and see what finally comes from the Reserve Bank of India.
All right, Sapna, many thanks. Now, credit card holders will be able to choose their card network when applying for a new card or renewing an existing one. Starting today, this move by the Reserve Bank is aimed to enhance customer choice and foster competition in the digital payment space. However, card issuers with less than 10 lakh active cards are not required to comply with these guidelines. Now, cash-strapped airline SpiceJet has submitted a presentation to the stock exchanges with details on how it plans to turn around its business. SpiceJet plans to raise 3,200 crore rupees, which it will use to settle liabilities. Madiha joins us now with more details. Madiha, take us through what SpiceJet has put down as part of its turnaround strategy.
Well, it's a detailed presentation on the current challenges that SpiceJet is grappling with and how it plans to navigate these challenges with the money that it hopes to raise, which is 3,200 crores. It is planning to raise 2,500 crores through QIP and 736 crores through previous warrants and promoter infusion. Now, the airline has shared some important numbers that it doesn't generally share. It said the operational fleet has reduced from 74 planes in 2019 to 28 planes in 2024, adding that 36 of its aircraft are grounded on account of dues and fund issues. Now, if you remember, at a recent hearing before the Delhi High Court, SpiceJet had pled to the court not to ground its 3 engines as it will lead to the grounding of 2 planes and leave its fleet with just 19 planes. But in the presentation, the airline said it has 28 planes in service. Now, SpiceJet said that a large part of its fleet is grounded because it owes 3,700 crores to various lessors. Now, remember, CNBC TV18 had found out through the RTI that SpiceJet has not deposited Provident Fund dues since 2.5 years. Now, in the presentation, SpiceJet said it has an outstanding of 650 crores towards statutory dues like the TDS and PF that's deducted from employee salaries every month. So these are the issues that SpiceJet is hoping to fix with the funds it plans to raise. It has presented a turnaround strategy that focuses on payments to lessors and clearing these statutory dues. It also plans to invest the funds into reviving the grounded fleet and also add new planes. It said that going forward, the airline will focus on boosting revenues like international flights, particularly to the Middle East destinations, and also consider wide-body operations in future for Asia to Europe connectivity. Now, it also plans to reduce costs by doing away with high-cost capital, renegotiate contracts with lessors, and optimization of human resources, and using advanced technologies for pricing and fuel optimization. Now, remember, while all this sounds quite promising, the turnaround is contingent on the airline managing to garner investor interest.
Yes, those funds will be crucial for SpiceJet to deliver on. Appreciate you joining us, Madiha. Now, the Supreme Court today granted bail to Neeraj Singhal, the former promoter of Bhushan Steel. This after 16 months in jail. He was arrested in connection with the 46,000 crore rupee money laundering case. Pronouncing the bail order, the Supreme Court bench noted that Singhal has been in jail for 16 months. The trial was unlikely to be over soon. The top court frowned on the long period of incarceration and slammed the delay in his trial. Justifying the bail, the court observed that it is aware of the impact of scams, but it has to lean in favor of liberty if trial does not begin. Now, the Supreme Court has issued a notice to former ICICI Bank MD and CEO Chanda Kochhar and her husband Deepak Kochhar. This in relation to the CBI's plea against the Bombay High Court order declaring their arrests illegal. The CBI argued that the Kochhar's arrest was in compliance with the law. Chanda and Deepak Kochhar were arrested in 2022 and subsequently granted bail in connection with the alleged Videocon loan case. On to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive tonight. The government is considering incentives for electric vehicles like police vehicles and ambulances under the flagship FAME 3 scheme. Sources say the government is considering ensuring that certificates are given out as a proof of subsidy for EV buyers, essentially to tell customers that it's the government that is providing that subsidy. Parikshit is standing by now with more on what the government plans for FAME 3. Parikshit.
People looking at buying electric vehicles in the coming months may soon get a certificate from the government. This would be a documentary proof of the subsidy received on the electric vehicle that a customer has purchased. The aim of this exercise would be to ensure that the end user of the electric vehicle knows that the government is bearing a portion of the cost of the electric vehicle to make it cheaper for every citizen in the country. Sources say in recent meetings, government officials have received feedback that even though the government has spent close to 11,000 crores since 2015 to subsidize two-wheelers, three-wheelers, buses and cars for the fleet segment charging infrastructure under the FAME scheme, the last mile user is unaware that the government is subsidizing every electric vehicle sold in the country. Therefore, the government is now in talks with OEMs to see how this certificate can be rolled out. Sources say the FAME 3 scheme, which is currently in the works, will spell out the modalities for issuing such a certificate, which spells out the subsidy given on the vehicle and the fact that the central government is bearing the cost for the subsidy. Also, we hear that apart from two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers and trucks, electric ambulances and electric cars could be added to the scheme. The centre is also considering giving additional incentives to EV buyers in case they have scrapped their old end-of-life vehicles. The new FAME 3 scheme could take another 2 to 3 months, and it is possible that the government may have to extend the temporary electric mobility promotion scheme, which ends in September, for a second time, till we have a new FAME scheme.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. India's electric two-wheeler retail sales have seen a 17.3% drop on a monthly basis in August, according to the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. Ola Electric sales declined 34%, while TVS Motors sales dropped nearly 10% in August. The sector's market share also witnessed a 6.6% drop versus 7.4% in the month of July. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has invited the steel industry to meet him and discuss what are allegations of unfair competition that the steel industry says they are facing on account of cheap imports from China, Vietnam and South Korea. Speaking at the CII event today, Goyal assured industry that government is committed to take necessary measures to keep the sector vibrant. Take a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set ambitious targets for manufacturing in India, and I've invited the steel industry, just as we have engagement with every other industry also, to understand the unfair competition that some of them are facing and take appropriate measures so that the steel industry remains vibrant, continues to grow and add jobs to the Indian economy.
Well, that's the Commerce Minister. Now, the GST Council will meet on Monday to deliberate on a number of crucial issues, from taxing gateway fee for small card transactions to deliberating on the tax treatment for insurance premiums. The Council has its plate full. And our colleague Timsy Jaipuria, who over the past few days has been bringing you all the inside stories on what the GST Council is likely to take up on its agenda, is here with the big curtain raiser. Timsy.
Well, a slew of items on the agenda for the GST Council when it meets on 9th of September. Let's take you through some of the key ones. The Council is likely to have a heated discussion on cutting GST on health and life insurance. Council will discuss Fitment Committee's proposal to allow GST exemption for only pure term individual life policies and reinsurers, which comes with a revenue implication of 213 crore rupees. For health insurance, sources say that the Fitment Committee could not build a consensus, and thus it has suggested a 4-option option mechanism, including a complete exemption for senior citizens and for policies up to 5 lakh rupees, or exemption to only those premiums which are paid by senior citizens, or reducing GST on all health insurance premiums to 5% with ITC. The Fitment Committee has flagged the potential revenue implications for all of these options, saying that any cut or reduction in the GST on both life or health insurance should come only when it is being passed on to the policy holders. The council could also clarify on whether 18% GST should be levied for card transactions below 2,000 rupees on payment aggregators such as Pine Labs, Razorpay, etc. The council nominated Fitment committees of a view that these aggregators are intermediaries and not banks or financial institutions, thus they are not liable for GST exemption. Currently, payment aggregators are exempt from GST for transactions below 2,000 rupees. The council will also be taking a status update on the group of ministers panel on rate rationalization and real estate, where both the panels are likely to seek more time before presenting a final report. The council will also discuss upon the current status of the compensation cess. Here the council will be presented with a view that the cess collections are still short of about 1.37 lakh crore rupees and thus will have to be continued through FY26. Apart from this, a lot of clarifications are expected, including a breather for the foreign airlines, data hosting sector, namkeen and FMCG sector, and auto and two-wheeler industry on the taxation of seats, relief for power discoms and consumers on electricity connection ancillary services, setback for highway builders and much more. So let's see what all does the council decide when it meets on 9th of September.
Yes, and we will be tracking all the action from the GST Council when it meets on Monday. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. We will have it live for you. Up next on India Business Hour, a decorated Paralympian, a PhD student, and now India's first archer to strike gold at the Paralympics. An exclusive conversation with Harvinder Singh coming up. Catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram, and JioCinema. The Parliament's Public Accounts Committee is set to call senior officials at regulatory bodies, including SEBI, for a performance review. Now, the Public Accounts Committee is headed by the Congress MP KC Venugopal. He is tasked with auditing government revenue and expenditure. Venugopal said the panel will call all regulators for a performance review. Take a look.
In that regulatory body, everything will be, not only SEBI, TRI will be there, ERA will be there. When we discussed about the agendas of the committee, members suggested these things. We included that performance assessment of these regulatory bodies enacted by the Parliament.
Meanwhile, the Congress party has made fresh allegations against the SEBI chief. Congress spokesperson Pawan Khera says the SEBI chief received rental income from a subsidiary of Walkcard, which is a listed entity. The Congress alleges that the SEBI chief received income at a time when Walkcard was being scrutinized for insider trading.
अब सवाल ये है कि किस कंपनी को माधवी पुरी बुच जी और उनके पति के नाम की एक प्रॉपर्टी है, बंबई की ये प्रॉपर्टी है। कंपनी का नाम है कैरल इन्फो और सर्विसेज लिमिटेड, कैरल इन्फो सर्विसेज लिमिटेड। आपको फिर भी नहीं समझ में आएगा कि कांग्रेस पार्टी ये नाम ले लेती है कंपनी का। आगे भी तो बताइए, आगे बताते हैं आपको। तो कैरल इन्फो सर्विसेज लिमिटेड वोकार्ट लिमिटेड नाम की एक कंपनी का हिस्सा है। माधवी पुरी बुच जी जिस संस्था में हैं, जिस संस्था की वो अध्यक्ष हैं, प्रमुख हैं, उस संस्था ने वोकार्ट की इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग के केसेस का भी निपटान किया। ये है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, मैं इसे करप्शन कहूंगा।
Fresh allegations there from the Congress party against the SEBI chief. Now, wrestlers Vinesh Phogat and Bajrang Punia have joined the Congress ahead of the Haryana Assembly elections. The duo met Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge at his residence ahead of their induction. Both Vinesh and Bajrang were at the forefront of the protest against former BJP MP and Wrestling Federation chief Brij Bhushan Singh for alleged sexual assault last year. Reports suggest that they are likely to contest the Assembly elections.
कांग्रेस पार्टी का मैं बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूं, क्योंकि जब बोलते हैं ना कि बुरे टाइम में पता लगता है कि अपना कौन है। जब हम रोड पे घसीटे जा रहे थे तो छोड़ के बीजेपी को देश में जितनी भी पार्टियां हैं वो हमारे साथ में थी, हमारे दर्द को समझ पा रही थी, हमारे आंसुओं को समझ पा रही थी। मैं बहुत प्राउड फील कर रही हूं कि मैं एक ऐसी पार्टी में, एक ऐसी विचारधारा में हूं जो महिलाओं के साथ हो रहा अन्याय और उनके साथ बुरे बर्ताव के खिलाफ खड़ी है, वो लड़ाई लड़ने के तैयार है, सड़क से लेकर संसद तक।
पूरे समय में हमारे साथ खड़े हुए जो आज बीजेपी की IT सेल बोल रही है कि इनका मकसद तो सिर्फ राजनीति करना था, हमने तो उनको लेटर भेजा था, वो जब भी नहीं आए। हमने तो बीजेपी के जो सांसद थी, जितनी भी महिला सांसद थी, उनके घर पे लेटर दिया था, वो फिर भी उन बच्चियों के साथ नहीं खड़े हो पाए। कांग्रेस पार्टी तो बिना कुछ हमने इनको बताया ये वहाँ पे हमारे साथ खड़े हुए।
Well, Bajrang Punia and Vinesh Fogart joining the Congress party. Now, the BJP has released its manifesto for the upcoming elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Home Minister Amit Shah, who's on a two-day visit to the poll-bound region, said the party will focus on eradicating terrorism and separatism. Also said that the BJP will push a rehabilitation scheme for Kashmiri Pandits. Shah said the party promises to create 5 lakh employment opportunities for marginalised communities as well. Well, it is a 6th gold medal for India at the Paralympics as the country's contingent continues its record-breaking run in Paris. Praveen Kumar broke the Asian record to claim the top spot in the men's high jump T64 final. With this, India has surpassed its gold medal tally from Tokyo. India is now the 14th on the medal standing with a total haul of 26 medals. And staying with the Paralympics, his legs were impaired when he was just 2. He continues to pursue a PhD and is now a 33-year-old Paralympian. Harvinder Singh has the distinction of being India's first archer to strike gold at the Paralympics. A bronze medalist in the Tokyo Paralympics, Harvinder defeated his opponent from Poland yesterday to give India a gold at the Paris Paralympics. In a conversation with our colleague Archana Solanki after hitting the bullseye, Harvinder said his hunger for excellence was far from over.
हरविंदर जी, CNBC TV 18 से बात करने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। हमारी टीम की तरफ से और पूरे देश की तरफ से बहुत बहुत मुबारक। आप जब पोडियम पर थे और नेशनल एंथम चल रहा था, उस वक्त क्या चल रहा था आपके मन में?
जी, सबसे प्राउड मोमेंट था जी वो, और माइंड में बस यही चल रहा था कि आज आपने कुछ ऐसा किया देश के लिए जिससे कि राष्ट्रीय ध्वज ऊपर जा रहा है सबसे ऊपर, और जो वहाँ पे जो भी एरिना था, आर्चरी एरिना, इतने जो दर्शक थे वो सब मान सम्मान दे रहे थे राष्ट्रगान को, तो खुशी हो रही थी बहुत ज्यादा। सबसे पहले जब मैं फाइनल में पहुंच गया था, सेमीफाइनल जीत लिया था, और 5 मिनट के लिए तो मतलब ऐसा था कि पांव जमीन पे नहीं लग रहे थे, क्योंकि मेडल श्योर हो गया था, मैं फाइनल में था। कोच साहब मैं बहुत खुश थे। फिर कुछ टाइम बाद ही ये चीज हमने आपस में भी डिस्कस की कि हमें अभी इस मोमेंट से नहीं निकलना है जो हम फोकस थे पिछले कुछ मैचेस में, क्योंकि अगर हम इसी से सेटिस्फाइड हो जाएं कि हम फाइनल में तो हैं ही, हार गए तो भी सिल्वर, तो ऐसे चैंपियन नहीं बन सकते। और एक जो सपना था वो पूरा करने का मौका था जब मैं पिछले 4 मैच जीत चुका था कि फाइनल में भी जीतूंगा तो गोल्ड आएगा देश के लिए।
हरविंदर जी, आपके बारे में एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात पता लगी मुझे। आप इकोनॉमिक्स में शायद PhD कर रहे हैं, तो ये आर्चरी में गोल्ड मेडल, इकोनॉमिक्स में PhD, इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए। क्या ये आपकी लाइफ का प्लान B है, क्या है ये? जी,
एक्चुअली दोनों चीजें थी। मैं जब से आर्चरी स्टार्ट की 2012 से, तो स्टडी भी कंटिन्यू चल रही थी, फिर मैंने PhD भी स्टार्ट कर दी। उसके बाद 2018 में मेडल जीता देश के लिए, तो स्टडी के लिए थोड़ा टाइम कम हो गया, गेम पे ज्यादा फोकस हो गया कि देश के लिए और मेडल जीतने। टोक्यो में भी मेडल जीता, तो इसी वजह से थोड़ी स्टडी लेट चल रही थी, लेकिन अभी ये साल है पूरा और मुझे उम्मीद है कि मैं इस साल पूरी कर लूंगा। इकोनॉमिक्स में मैं PhD कर रहा हूँ पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी पर।
Well, congratulations there to Harvinder. May he continue his journey with the Paralympics and also with his PhD. And before we wrap, the NSE has received its own bull. The Governor of Maharashtra, ACP Radhakrishnan, along with the NSE CEO Ashish Chauhan, unveiled the new bull outside the stock exchange today. Well, may the bull run continue. And on that bullish note, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on